Welcome back, everybody. Time to go behind the headlines, where today the federal trial of the Kettle Falls Four has begun. 3 family members and a close friend who are charged with illegal possession and distribution of medical marijuana. If convicted, they face minimum mandatory sentences of 10 years in prison. Those charged include Rhonda Firestack Harvey, she's age 55, her son, Roland Gregg, age 33, Roland's wife, Michelle, age 35, and a close family friend, Jason Zucker, age 38. They grew marijuana on the property of their home in northeastern Washington. Rhonda's husband, Larry, also was originally charged. This is a case that was called the Kettle Falls Five, but just a couple of days ago, actually it was last week, the government dropped all charges against Larry Harvey because he's 71 years old and has stage 4 pancreatic cancer. So apparently the other folks are healthy enough to prosecute and to threaten with 10-year prison sentences. But once you get pancreatic cancer and are facing 3 to 6 months to live, I guess the crime isn't that big a deal anymore. And it's a very frustrating case in that, as a federal case, the defendants are not allowed to put forth any information to the jury that they are medical marijuana patients, that they are sick in any way, that they were obeying Washington state law. These folks were found to have been growing 74 marijuana plants. In Washington state, a legal medical marijuana patient, of which all 5 of these people were, keep that in mind, a legal patient can cultivate up to 15 plants. 15 times 5 people, that's 75 plants. They were 1 plant under that. Now, when the cops first showed up, the Washington police treated them as a collective. Now, under Washington laws, as a collective, you can cultivate 45 plants. So they seized 29 of the plants. They seized just enough plants to get the Harveys underneath that limit of 45, which to me says that, as according to the Washington State Police, they understood these people were medical marijuana patients, that they were growing within their rights. There's a quibble as to whether they were 5 individuals with 15 plants each or 1 collective with 45 plants total. But there was no doubt about the fact that these people were medical marijuana patients trying to obey the law. But later, the federal authorities came back, conducted another raid, and this time hauled them off and charged them with multiple federal counts: cultivation, distribution, and firearms charges, use of a firearm on the commission of a drug felony, which is related to the fact that they had hunting weapons and self-defense weapons in this rural northeastern Washington home, like many people in rural northeastern Washington have. So the trial goes forth. It starts today. And if you're wondering about the spending bill, there was a spending bill that was passed by the federal Congress that prohibited the Department of Justice, and that would include the DEA, that prohibited the Department of Justice from spending any money to go after and prosecute people involved in legal state medical marijuana programs. This was something that the attorneys for the Harveys brought up as well, but the judge in this case, Thomas O. Rice, threw that motion out, saying that this did not apply to this particular case, as these raids happened in 2012. Now, I think this is something that, depending on how the case goes, if it goes badly for the defendants, is something that would be brought up on appeal. The government is clearly spending money here, contrary to the spending prohibition that was enacted by the Congress. And this is one area where, and this will play into the rant that I'm doing later on in the show as well, but this reticence by our elected officials at state, local, even the federal level, to recognize the will of the people on the issue of marijuana. It's clear that the people of the state of Washington not only don't want any prosecution of patients like these who are engaged in medical marijuana, but the people of Washington state have legalized recreational marijuana. If the federal government's making the case that these are some kind of marijuana kingpins for their 74 plant medical grow, they need to start explaining why they've got farms in Prosser, Washington that are pumping out 10,000 marijuana plants, and the federal government isn't doing a thing about those. So this is clearly a selective prosecution, and the people of the state of Washington don't want it for medical or recreational purposes. And as I mentioned earlier, the federal Congress has passed that amendment that says that you can't spend any money going after these state legal medical marijuana programs. We have numerous memos from the Department of Justice saying it's not in their interest to go after these small fish when there's so many big fish in the sea to go after, and that it's not a wise use of the federal resources to prosecute these people. President Obama was elected and re-elected and has continually promised that it is not in his administration's best interests to be going after these people that are obeying medical marijuana laws, and yet the prosecution continues. The prosecution began today and it continues. And the only hope for the Kettle Falls 4 at this point, since they were clearly breaking federal law, is to hope that that jury understands that what's going on here is a travesty of justice and that they use their power of jury nullification to end this travesty.
Oh, I could have